Okay, this this video is part 2, whereby I'm going to discuss how do we install all the Scala related tools, right? So that's for this discussion, and of course I'll be editing the instructions if needed in the side by side. So the first part is to install SBT and also set up the path variable. This is very similar to the Spark and Scala that you did in the first step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same window here. I'm going to look for SBT Windows download. So that's going to get us to the download page, and you get the MSI. So just click on that. Okay. So you get SBT 1313. So save it. So again, this is also an installer. So what you have to do is just start up the boot file. So it's saying that it's not trustable because it doesn't understand, but never mind, just go ahead and accept it. So you'll be able to install it on the default folders. So it is x86 SBT, and then accept the administrative rights. So you can see that it goes through the wizard and then you finish it. So where does it go and sit? It basically goes and sits inside the SBT folder, so you may have to set up the path again. This PC, properties, advanced system variables, environment variables, a new variable called SBT_home. This is in C drive, program files, SBT. Done. Edit. SBT home. Okay, that's good. Path, edit. You can see it is hard coded here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put SBT home instead of hard coding. It's okay if you hard code, but I'm just trying to be safe here. So that is done, and the variable installation is complete. The next thing you need is basically to test. So what you can do is at any point in time you just open a command shell, just say SBT. So it starts. Okay, it's saying I can't find a build, so just say quit. So just you know that SBT works. Okay. So now that you have installed the Scala build tool, the next thing is to go for Scala IDE. So open a new window and just look for Scala IDE download. So that will get you to the Scala IDE download page, Windows 64-bit. So again, download. It's a zip file. So just go for the, wait for it to complete. It is taking a minute or two, depending on the speed. So you can see that the download is done. So if you go back, you'll be able to see the Scala file that downloaded instead, which is this. Okay, just copy this file again, come back to C drive, and to copy it into the C drive. You can see it's a zip file, so say for to use 7-zip, just say extract here. So you can see that it installs it inside the Eclipse folder. I don't need these two zip files because they're already there in the download, so I'm just clearing and bookkeeping. So inside the Eclipse, you can see that there is an Eclipse created. So you can say create a shortcut, and then if you want, you can name this shortcut. Right click, rename this shortcut as Scala IDE. And what you can do is you can right click and say send this to desktop. So you will see that there is a desktop icon created, which is good. So to get this started, you can look at the installation. So when you select your workspace, So what I'm going to do is, I think I will use my E drive instead. Okay, so instead of the C drive, what I'm going to do is just put this in the E drive. Call this as workspace should be good. Okay, so just say launch. So this will launch the Eclipse IDE, as you can see. You can create a Scala code, and then of course you can test it. Okay, so let's see. File. You can create a Scala project. Okay. I'm going to call this a Scala demo. Okay. And then let's say finish. So this creates a Scala project, which is good. Then I can create a new Scala object inside. So I'll say new Scala object. Hello world. Okay, finish. So once this is done, what you can do is object hello world extends app. You can write a main. Okay. Then you can also extend apps, whichever is easy. Print hello world. So the first routine that we do in any language. So right click that, run as Scala application. Because it is extended app, you will be able to see the code running. So this basically means the Scala setup is all perfectly done. So the next step is to install the SBT plugin, Eclipse SBT plugin. So let me close this IDE first, and then of course I got to pick up where I left it, which is this. And then what I'll do is I'll just look for SBT Eclipse plugin install. So it gets me to the Eclipse plugin. So you can see that it is nothing but adding a simple line of code, and I got to do this on the .sbt folder, right? And I have to create a subfolder called plugins and then /plugins.sbt. So I'm going to just do it in the global file so that I don't have to do it every single time. So that makes it easy. Okay? So let's see. I'm going to use C users. My username is Surya. So let me see, is there any I don't find it. So, I want to look at the hidden files. So when I select that, I have this app data, as you can see. Inside the app data, do I have local? Okay. Do I have roaming? Okay, so local. Oh, I don't find the .sbt anymore. Just give me a moment. Let me figure it out. Okay, the thing is that you remember if when I ran the SBT, I simply quit, right? So I opened the command prompt again, and then instead of quitting, I said continue. So this basically does the installation for the first time. So this was the step that I missed out. So that's why I had this trouble. So all you got to do is you open the command prompt SBT, and instead of quitting, just say continue. For the first time, what happens is SBT gets some of its files from the internet and then saves it. So that's why you are not able to see the .sbt folder. Right? Now when you're running this, you can see that there is this file created. Allow the installer to run for some time, then you'll be able to continue the installation. So since it's going to take some time, what I'll do is I'll pause my video here and then I'll continue when the installation is done. Okay. So let's wait for it. It takes a little bit of time for the first time. Okay. After that, it should be fast. So you will see that it has gone through the installation. So you can see that it has successfully copied all the tools that are necessary, and it is updating the folder structure. So once it is done, you will be seeing that it returns to the SBT command prompt, and now you can quit. Okay. So maybe Control-C. Okay. Terminate job. Yes. Okay. So that's done. So because you have run the tool once, then you will see that this .sbt folder is created. So if you look into the .sbt folder, there is this version number 1, which is what you will be looking at into the setup folder. So if you look into the instructions or the website that we downloaded the file from, it says inside the SBT, inside the version 1.0, you have to create a folder called plugins, and inside that you have to create another file called plugins.sbt. So let's do that. So here I got to create a new folder called plugins, plugins, right? And then inside the plugins, here is where I have to create a file called plugins.sbt. The problem with right-click new and creating the file is it is only allowing me to create text files. In this case, I'm more interested in creating a .sbt file. So what I'm going to do is, at this point, I'm going to open a command prompt by typing cmd on the file explorer. So it goes to the current folder as C users sbt1 plugins. So here what I have to do is notepad plugins.sbt. So it is asking me if I have to create a new file. I'm going to say yes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this line inside this plugins.sbt. So let me copy the line here, then close it by saving the file. And if you go back to the folder, you can see that you have created this .sbt file. So this much is correct. And what you got to do is to connect to Eclipse, you got to say Eclipse. So this we will do as the next step after we have created a project. Okay, so far so good, right? So we have installed the SBT plugin folder as well. So once this is done, our next job is to go back to the Eclipse IDE. So let's do that. So I'm going to restart the Eclipse IDE here. Launch the same workspace. Takes a bit of time, but you can see that it is doing the right thing. Okay, so here my idea is to create a Spark project. So I'm going to right click and say new Scala project. This time I'm going to call this as Spark demo. Okay, so I want to be able to connect to my Scala Spark from here. So I'm going to say finish. So this is a Scala project, that's fine. And you know that I'm interested in Scala 2.11, right? So I'm going to select the project, go to Scala, and I can change the installation. So I can say set installation to 2.11. Okay, so I've done that. Okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll close this workspace because the rest of the work is done in command prompt. Okay, so let me save the workspace. You know that we have created this workspace inside the D drive. Inside the D drive, we created this workspace. The project is called as Spark Demo. So here I have to create a file, and the file that I have to create is called as SBT. I can call it anything. I'm going to call this as build SBT. So I'm going to open a command prompt in the same drive here. I'm going to use the same notepad build.sbt file name, and this will ask me if I want to create a new file. So I'm going to test, right? So what we will do is you will get this from the GitHub folder, but for now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it from text. Okay, so reality is you will have the GitHub. Right? So this is usually the GitHub version or the folder that has got all the codes. Right? So with September 2020. So if you look into the Scala Spark test, this has got the version that we want, right? But we can change it to whatever it is. Okay? So let me just type in the build content inside, okay? And of course we can change it to whatever we want. Maybe I will increase the font size. It's too small to read, so I'll make it 24. Okay? So then I've got to give it a name. So this project I've called it as a Spark Demo. So I'm going to call the project build file also as Spark Demo. I'm using first version. Scala version is 12. Let's see what's the Spark version. Spark version that we are using 247, right? So we can fix that here as well. So we can say use Spark version 247, right? And then bring in MySQL, bring in Spark, bring in SQL, all the basic libraries. So I'm asking the build tool to do the job for me. So I've saved this. Okay? So let's go back. C drive, E drive, workspace, Spark demo. I've created this file called build spt. So here again I open the command prompt. If you want to see, there is a build file. Okay, so now I can start the sbt eclipse. I have to type sbt space eclipse. It will start running the tools for me. Only condition is when I run this sbt eclipse, I should not have my Scala IDE on, because you can't have two applications using the same folder structure. So when you're running this tool first time, what is happening is this tool is going into the internet, connecting to the Apache servers, and then bringing in all the Scala libraries that is necessary to run the files. Okay? So when you say sbt eclipse, it goes there. You know that inside your build file you have used Spark Core, Spark SQL, Spark Streaming, Spark Machine Learning. So whatever libraries you wanted, it is going to pick the latest version that you've specified, connect it, and then bring it back into a local copy. So it takes a little bit of time. Give it the time. When it is finished, we are ready to test if the Spark is working from the IDE. So also note here, just like when we did the SBT start and then we said continue, it did a setup for the first time. The same way, when you do SBT Eclipse also for the first time, it takes a little bit of time because it's bringing in all the libraries from the code repositories. So I'll allow this installation to go through, and then of course I'll continue showing you how to connect this to project and start coding. Okay, so you can see that it has successfully installed everything. It says successfully created Eclipse project. Voila, you're ready to run. Okay? So this is all done. Brilliant. Okay, so let's go back to Scala IDE now. So restart the Scala IDE. So let me check if the installation is correct. Yeah, most of it is there in installation. Okay. So you can see that you've already created a workspace and then a project, right? Only after that you come back and run the tool. Okay? So the first thing you got to see is if there is any errors. Very likely there will be no errors. If there are errors, it's because of Scala. Okay? So if it says there is something mismatch, you got to figure out what is the mismatch and then fix it. So let's wait for some time and see if there is any errors. The build is successful. There's no problems. The problems must not have any errors. Right? If there is an error, it's very likely that because you are using Scala 12 instead of Scala 11. So for that, you right click the project, go to Scala and say set Scala installation and put that to 211. Okay? Then you should be fine. Okay, so now you see the first time you ran this SBT2, you see this new folder. See, normally in your Scala demo, there's only Scala compiler and Java compiler. But because you ran this SBT tool inside the Spark demo workspace, it has created an additional folder called reference libraries. So that was what the build tool is all about. And it brings in all the Spark libraries that you need. Okay? So you don't have to hard code. The build tool does the job for us, which is brilliant, right? But the only thing is, you see there is this source folder here, and this source folder is not recognized as a source folder. The moment it is recognized as a source folder, you'll have a very small brown package icon. So you can see that is missing, right? So let's fix that first. So for that, select the project, right click the project and go to properties. Okay, let me go through this once again. See, in the Scala demo, you have the source. So inside the source, you have the default package. But here you also have the source folder, but you see it is not connected as a package. Okay? So that link is broken. That's because of the SBT tool. And the SBT tool is a clumsy tool. It breaks the connection. So you got to put that back. So for that, you select the Spark demo, right click it, go to properties. Inside the Java build path, the first folder is called as the source folder, and you see currently it is empty. So here you have to add the folder as this is my source folder. Okay. Once you do that, you say apply and close. You will see that this source folder immediately becomes a package. Okay. So wait, give it a minute or two. You can see that it is converted into a package. From a normal folder, it is converted into a package, which is good. Then you can start writing codes and testing codes. So what you do is here also you can create a Scala object. So I'm going to call this as hello Spark. Okay, so this is my first Scala program, and I want to test the Spark program. So as usual, I'm going to say extends app. Okay. So that creates an empty class for me. Then what I want to do is I want to do a line count for a file. Okay. So let's create a file here. I'll say new file. I'll just call this as demo.txt. You can also call it anything. I'm just calling it as demo.txt. This is a demo. The file has some text. Spark framework is going to count the number of lines in this file. So I just put some text here and I saved it. So what I want to do is I want to see if this particular code is okay. So my job is to see if the coding is basically able to connect to this particular Scala code, and then see if it is able to work on the Scala code from Spark code from here. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe I should increase the font size preference. Java, you don't have to do that. My screen is too small, so I thought of editor, text editor, colors and fonts. I'm going to take the basic text font and then say edit. It's right now 10 points is too small. I'm going to make it 16. To make it at least readable, you have to say 16. Okay. So now I think you will be able to see the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put some files here. I'm going to say logger. This is E drive is my file, workspace. I think in the workshop instruction I called it as Scala Spark test, but here I've just called it as Spark demo. So I'll just use the same part. I've called the project name as Scala demo. I didn't call it as readme.txt as I have given in the workshop instructions. Now I've just used demo.txt, so I'll use that. Okay. But you can see that this is missing, right? A lot of imports are missing, so that's why it's giving you an error. You can right click and go to the source folder and then say organize imports. So it will bring in all the necessary imports. So I need a Spark SQL session. I need a log4j level. And then of course I also need a log4j logger. So I'm just picking those, then it's done. So what it is going to do is it's going to filter the line that contains A, the line that contains B. So let's see, is there any lines that contain A? A is almost in all the first 3 lines. And the B is there. Is there any B? Okay, there's nothing with B so far in this file. So I shouldn't be able to see any lines for the B, but for the A, I should be seeing the first 3 lines of this code. So let's test it out. So this is basically reading the file, which is demo.txt, and then counting lines with A and counting lines with B. So to run the code, you know the drill. So right click, then say run as Scala application. So you can see that it's submitting the job. Last time when we said hello world, we are only running a Scala program. So here, when you are submitting a job, you are submitting it into the Spark framework that you have just installed. So you can see that it is submitting to the Spark framework. The number of lines that has had A was 3 lines. B is 1. Let me see if there is any B. Number, there's a B. Right? So there's 1 line with a B and then 3 lines with A. So this is how we know that the Scala code works, and that completes my part 2 demo. Okay, thank you very much.